Hi, my name is Steffani Raff, and I have been doing storytelling since 1997. I have had both the great privilege and blessing of training with many of the most masterful storytellers in the world, and I am thrilled to be able to share the art of storytelling with you and your families. Let me give you a little overview of what I'm planning for this class. First, we're going to travel all over the world with story. I'll model a story for each class, and then I will teach your children how to create a story map to relearn that story themselves. I will teach them tools, techniques, and tips for telling the story within the context of that particular story. So I'll pull out interesting things for each story so that they can keep learning and growing in their ability to tell a great story. Then I'm going to challenge them to create a new story, whether it's a story from their own life or memory, or a new story based off of the old story that we worked with, by using something I have termed as a guided story journey. It will be great fun, and they will learn so much as they experience this class. So, what is storytelling exactly? Well, let me compare storytelling to reading aloud to help you understand and have a vision of what storytelling is. When you're reading aloud, your children hear the language and develop the vocabulary as they listen. They form the pictures in their head as you read the book. When you're reading aloud, you look down at the page and the written text. And the thing that makes storytelling different than that is when you're storytelling, you're not looking or referring to a page of text. Those words are coming from you, and they're coming based off of the images in your mind that you're trying to transfer from your mind to your child's mind, or vice versa if your child is telling a story to you. You are connecting eye to eye and heart to heart as you tell stories. And so there's an additional level of bonding that occurs when you're telling a story. There are many benefits for storytelling, and many of these are researched and also benefits that I've experienced within my own home. Of course, storytelling helps you develop your ability to speak and communicate, which is a wonderful thing. It also develops the imagination. Now, you may think of imagination as being not as important, but honestly, in order to see where a choice might lead, you have to be able to imagine what might happen next. In order to know what it would be like to walk in someone else's shoes, you have to be able to imagine it. In order to develop a love of reading, you have to be able to develop those pictures in your head as you read. In addition to this, storytelling helps children to be in tune to the sensory world around them. It helps them learn how to deal with people and places that are unfamiliar to them. It gives them an improved speaking vocabulary and the ability to look at a situation from multiple angles. It develops a cultural understanding as they listen to stories from other cultures and other peoples. It helps them develop resilience, a sense of belonging, and a sense of order. It also helps them with visual cognition, and it increases their memory, which is fantastic for any kind of learning. So let me tell you a couple of stories from my own experience with telling stories in my home. I tell my children stories about my grandpa a lot. My grandpa was a baker by trade, and I spent a lot of time in my early childhood at his bakery. And every time I went to his bakery, he would take me back to a giant wooden workbench in the back, and he would hand me a silver bowl filled with cookie dough. I would take that cookie dough and mold it and shape it like Play-Doh until all of my cookie creations were done. Then I would call for my grandpa to come and bake my cookies. And while he took my cookies to the oven, I would wait and dream of the frosting I would add to my cookies. Well, after some time, my grandpa would come back toward me with a solemn face and an empty cookie tray. He would tell me that the oven monster had eaten my cookies, and then hand me another silver bowl filled with cookie dough. Well, I would get right back to work again, making my cookie creations. And this is how it went all afternoon. He would bring me another bowl full of cookie dough because the oven monster had eaten my cookies. I spent most of my early childhood trying to discover a way to trick that oven monster and stop him from eating my cookies. Finally, just before we were about ready to go, the oven monster was full, and my cookies were baked, and I could add the frosting. It wasn't until I was 16 years old that I was talking to my mom about my grandpa after he had passed away, and I asked about the oven monster, and she explained to me that the oven monster was something my grandpa made up to keep me busy for long periods of time at the bakery. When he went to put the cookies in the oven, he never actually put them in the oven. He just squished the cookie dough back together to offer to me as a consolation for the oven monster eating my cookies. Now, my children love this story. They think it's so funny, and I'm just telling you a little brief version of it. And it is actually a really funny story. My grandpa was clever. I didn't realize, though, how much they loved this story until many, many years later. My college-age daughter was sitting at the table with me and the rest of the family as we ate dinner one night, and I asked, "Hey, if there was anyone that you could spend the day with, past, present, or future, who would it be?" And, my younger boys said Spider-Man, but my daughter, she took some time to answer that question. She really thought about it. And finally she said, if I could spend the day with anyone, past, present, or future, I would want to spend the day with the oven monster grandpa. She never met him, but because of my stories, he was so real to her that she wanted to spend the day with him. And this is how it goes with stories. The people in the stories become real, whether they are from history or from your family history. They become real. Now, I have a son with disabilities, and we learned pretty quickly that most children do not know naturally how to be kind to him. He is very different. He has cerebral palsy, and he walks differently. He talks differently. He interacts with the world in a very different way. And most children kind of shy away from him, not knowing what to do. And some children are even cruel. Well, we had this experience where he was invited to be a part of a Christmas pageant. And throughout this experience, I worked with the kids within that group of children performing for the Christmas pageant so that they would know that my son really wasn't that different than they are, that he still wants friends, that he hurts and needs encouragement, that he that he is a really great person to spend a day with. And over time, I watched those children change. And by the time the performance came, when my son got stage fright and wouldn't go out onto the stage for his cue, the rest of the children were already on stage. And one little child began to whisper, come on, Greg, come on out here onto the stage with us." He still wouldn't go. And then the rest of the children started to chant his name. "Greg, Greg, Greg." These children not only learned how to be his friend, they learned how to be his greatest ally. And he ended up going out onto that stage, and they all cheered. They had learned empathy for him. They could see him and understand him right where he was at. It's really amazing the things that happen with storytelling. Stories stick in a way that nothing else can. So whether we work with stories from your family or a personal experience from your children, a story from other lands or cultures, fairy tales, a story from history or nature, a story of wonder or enchantment, I hope to make these stories a real part of your children's growth and development. I hope you join me for storytelling. Thank you.